Welcome back to Study Tips for IGCSE Biology. Today's topic is regarding pathogen and immunity. Without further delay, let's begin. In this chapter, you will find out about pathogens and transmissible disease, direct and indirect methods by which pathogen can be transmitted, how mechanical and chemical barriers prevent pathogen entering the body, how food hygiene and personal hygiene can reduce the risk of infection, the importance of hygiene waste disposal and sewage treatment, about antibodies and what they do, vaccination, immunization and how it works, active and passive immunity, how immunization can control infection diseases in the population, and how type 1 diabetes is caused. Let's look into pathogen and transmissible disease. What does it mean by pathogen? Pathogen is a microorganism, can be seen with a microscope that can cause disease. They get into bodies and breed there. Diseases that are caused by pathogens usually be passed from one person to another and is called transmissible diseases. Once inside body, some pathogen damage cell by leaving them and using up the resources. And other can cause harm to the cell and body system by producing waste product called toxin, which spread around the body and cause symptoms like high temperature, rashes, and etc. Toxin produced by pathogen like bacterium, Clostridium, botulinum are among dangerous poison in the world. Below table shows the 4 kinds of microorganisms that can act as pathogen and some of the disease that they cause. For example, viruses. Example diseases which they cause is influenza, common cold, poliomyelitis, and AIDS. Bacteria, the disease that they cause is cholera, syphilis, whooping cough, tuberculosis, and tetanus. Protozoes can cause disease like malaria, pneumonic, dysentery, and fungi is actually foot ringworm. Direct and indirect methods by which pathogen can be transmitted. There are several ways pathogen can get into body. It's either through direct contact or indirect transmission. What is actually meaning direct contact? Direct contact means that pathogen can pass from one person to another where there is a direct contact between infected person to uninfected person. And disease transmitted like these are known contagious disease. Example, virus can be transmitted through direct contact like AIDS, HIV, fungus, and so on. Indirect transmission, most pathogens are transmitted indirectly method through the respiratory passages. Every time when someone illness speaks or cough or sneeze, millions of viruses are propelled into the air. So when the person breathes in, the droplets become infected. So it pick up the viruses through touch the surface like hand to your face in the food or water. Example, the viruses that can enter into alimentary canal through food, okay, is Salmonella viruses. And these viruses can cause you food poisoning. Likewise, poliomyelitis and bacterium can cause cholera, which is transmitted in the water. Indirect transmissions, the other example is by vector. What it means by vector is organism that carries a pathogen from one host to another, like dogs, skunks, raccoons, bats, are the vectors for rabies virus, which transmitted their saliva when they bite. Anopheles mosquito can cause is a vector that which can cause malaria. How mechanical and chemical barriers prevent pathogen entering the body? Human body has many natural defenses against pathogens. Let's look into the mechanical barrier. The structure that make difficult for the pathogens to get past into the body. Example, nostril contain hairs that help to trap dust that might be carrying pathogens. And skin that has a thick outer layer of dead cell containing protein called keratin that is very difficult to penetrate. So when the skin is cut, blood clot seal the wound, prevent blood loss, but prevent pathogen getting into the blood. So let's look into chemical barrier. Lining of alimentary canal and respiratory system produce sticky mucus that can trap pathogen. And then on top of that, in our stomach, there is acid hydrochloric that can kill off many bacteria in food as well as those in swallowed mucus. Pathogens that manage to get through all of these defenses are usually destroyed by white blood cell. So, phagocytosis produce chemical called antibodies that incapacitate, directly kill the pathogen. So, vaccination against a particular disease help antibodies to be produced very quickly if the person is infected by the pathogen that caused it. How food hygiene and personal hygiene can reduce the risk of infection? Let's look into the food hygiene. First and foremost, the very important that I would like to stress here, wash your hand before touching or eating food. Keep your hair out of food. Example, wear uniform that cover clothes and hair. Secondly, you have to keep away animals from the food. So they should be never allowed to come into contact with the food. And thirdly, do not keep food at room temperature for a long period. Keeping food in the fridge will slow down bacterial growth. And fourth, you have to keep raw meat away from other foods. And then the most very important is about your personal hygiene. What is personal hygiene? Meaning keeping your body clean. This greatly reduces the risk of passing on transmissible diseases. First, human skin made an oil that helps to keep it supple and waterproof. Oil can build up as can dirt from things that we have touched. Sweat keep our body temperature from rising too high, and you have to brush your teeth twice a day or using mouth wash that can keep harmful bacteria under control. And finally, you have to make sure that your surrounding, your bed, your bed sheet, everything in a clean condition. The importance of hygiene, waste disposal, and sewage treatment. Waste disposal, waste management is the management of unwanted garbage by disposing and recycling them. Moreover, waste management needs proper methods keeping in mind the environmental condition in our surrounding. For instance, there are several methods and techniques through which the waste can be disposed of, like landfill, recycling, compositing, and many other techniques. Furthermore, these methods are greatly useful in the process of disposing of the waste without causing any harm to our environment and cause any pathogen from spread. On top of that, The other important hygiene is a sanitization. Sanitization and neatness play an important role in our day-to-day routine. So it is important as to prevent dangerous diseases like dengue, typhoid, hepatitis, and other diseases that can caused by mosquito bite. About antibodies and what they do. First of all, let's understand about how this antibody works. One type of blood cell called lymphocyte produce chemical called antibodies. These antibodies help to destroy pathogen. Antibody is a protein molecule with a particular shape. This shape just right to fit into another molecule to destroy pathogen. Pathogen molecule are called antigen. There is several ways antibody molecule lock into pathogen. One of them is through alert phagocyte to the presence of pathogen. Phagocyte come and destroy them, or antibodies start a series of reactions in the blood which produce enzyme to digest pathogens. So most of lymphocyte wait for signal which lymphocyte can be destroyed by its particular antibody. Lymphocyte will start to divide rapidly by mitosis, making a clone of lymphocyte just like itself, then secrete the antibody and destroy pathogen. So it may take a while to produce a big enough clone to kill the pathogen. So in the meantime, the pathogen breed and making the person become ill. Lymphocytes are very important part of immune system. So the way they produce a response to pathogen is called immune response. So when lymphocyte clone itself, not all of the cell make antibodies. Some of them remain in the blood and other parts of the body, living for a very long time and is called memory cells. Memory cells ready and waiting to kill the same pathogen when it's trying to get into the body before they have time to produce a large population. So we call this person has become immune to that type of pathogen. Vaccination, immunization, and how it works. Okay, children are given vaccination at various stages as they grow. The vaccine immunizes children against disease caused by pathogens. Adults can also be given vaccination if they are at risk of getting particular diseases. So a vaccine contains weakened or dead viruses or bacteria that normally cause disease. These pathogens have the same antigen as normal one, but they are not able to cause disease. When these pathogens introduced into the body, they are recognized by lymphocyte. Lymphocyte multiple and produce antibody just as they would after a reinfection. They make memory cell which give long-term immunity. But below tables is actually the differences between the active and passive immunity. So what does it mean by the passive, by the active immunity? The active immunity means that if the person made their own antibodies and memory cell to protect against pathogen is called active immunity. So the person can develop active immunity by having the disease and getting over it and being vaccinated with that viruses or pathogen. That is called active immunity. Whereas passive immunity means that a person has passive immunity to a disease if they have been given antibodies that have been made by another organism. Babies get passive immunity by breastfeeding. Breast milk contains antibodies from the mother which are passed on to the baby. So another way of getting passive immunity is through injected with antibodies that has been made by another organism which can destroy the viruses immediately. Passive immunity can last in a short term because the antibodies will break down, and no lymphocyte have been stimulated to make clone of themselves. So that's the differences between active and passive immunity. And AIDS. AIDS is autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases is very, by biologists, or as we already know, immune system is very effective in protecting against many different infection diseases. When immune system go wrong, it will attack part of the body. So normally lymphocyte respond only to foreign cell that enter the body and produce antibody against them. However, when the system break down, lymphocyte behave as some of own cell as foreign and react as they would to an invasion of pathogens. So the kind of malfunction of immune system is called autoimmune disease. Let's look into how the diabetes type 1 develop. The pancreas is a gland that lies beneath the stomach. It makes enzymes that help to digest food in small intestine and make hormones that help to control the concentration of glucose in the blood. So one of the hormones produced by the pancreas is insulin. This hormone is made when blood glucose concentrations rises above normal and bring about events that cause concentration to fall. Insulin is made by a particular type cell in the pancreas called beta cell. In some people, the cell of the immune system attack the beta cell and destroy them. No one understands exactly why this happens. So most common happen when a person is very young. So type 1 diabetes usually develop in children rather than in adults. So the loss of beta cells means that insulin is no longer produced, so blood glucose concentration is not controlled. So most people with type 1 diabetes have to take insulin at regular interval. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much.